Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chestnut channel. Thanks for being with us. All this year, we've been focusing on one clan per month, one of the 12 Hatton clans in the Confederation. October is Clan Phail, also known by some as Clan MacPhail or MacPhail. I've asked John Mackfall, who is the founder and president of the Phail Society, the Clann Phail Society, I believe started in about 1986, to be with me today in order to give us a background about Clan Phail and pretty much fill us in everything about it because that's what we do here on the Touchnut channel. Hello, John.
Hello, Ben. Thank you for asking me to join you this evening. It's a great honour for me. I don't get interviewed very often,
Oh,
at least not that way. Um, yeah, the Clan Phail. It's been around as long as Scotland, in reality. The people that form it clearly were Scots from the Highlands. The Clan Phail itself as a people kind of originated pre-records well back well before 1291, when Ava, the daughter of the chief of Clan Hattan, married a Macintosh and took the Clan Hattan to the east side of Scotland to form their great Clan Hattan there, rather than the old Clan Hattan, which was in the west and in central. And it's the old Clan Hattan really formed with the Macphersons, Macbains, MacPhails,
mm-hmm.
Cattanachs. They're the ones who are recorded as the old Clan Hattan
Right.
pre
Yeah,
21.
yeah, we're
And
familiar with this a little bit. We're familiar with this a little bit, John, a bit that's somewhat of a delineation between. We don't usually use the word new Clan Hattan, do we? But we do use the word old Clan Hattan or
yeah,
stock and things like that. And so that's a familiar sort of point in a lot of the clan's histories.
yeah, it's quite a vital part, to be fair, because the old Clan Hattan um, were figured around the Macphersons, Macbains, MacPhails, and Cattanachs.
Okay.
Um, when they actually moved more to the east under the Macintosh, a lot of other families joined. Those that are affiliated to Macintosh, which there's quite a few,
Right.
then joined Clan Hattan and became part of the much bigger confederation across the whole central band, the Highlands. Um, it's not quite as simple for the MacPhails. We're a bit complicated, not on purpose, but historically, we've kind of formed into four different sections that come under different clans, which, unlike probably most other clans, that's happened to us. There's the original ones that moved across from the west to the east
Mhm.
into Strathnairn under the Macintosh and Clan Hattan. Of
Okay.
course, going back 800 years, if your family had lived in an area for so long and all of a sudden your chiefs all decided to move further east, you wouldn't necessarily want to give up your land and your farming and where you work and what you do, because that's where your family is. So
Sure.
many of them didn't travel east. Many of them stayed. And the old lands of the MacPhails, or the chiefly family of MacPhails, was around Fassifern, which is not far from Fort William. Now, a lot of them didn't want to move, and so didn't. They stayed. And of course, the ones that stayed around Fort William area came under the Camerons. So they took protection from the Camerons and remained
Okay.
with them. And then there's ones further down the country, more in Argyll, who took protection from the Campbells.
Mhm.
So there's some there that remained there.
I see.
And then there's another family that's not related at all to any of these, and they come under the Mackays, Clann
Okay.
in Sutherland and the north of Scotland. And they're not related purely because their MacPhails took their name from the second son of the chief, and they became Paulsons, MacPhails,
Okay.
and Phails.
A Mackay chief was named Paul, right? You
Well,
said,
the second son was called Paul,
I see.
so they took under him,
Yes.
um,
Right.
and
Okay.
became
Yeah.
part of the Mackays. But they were Mackays. They weren't
Yes.
part of the others. So they're totally separate.
Right.
So the other three groups that came under different clans now then separated completely, uh, with no real connection anymore from about 1291 and 1300s onwards.
Really?
Uh,
Okay.
so we mainly focus on the ones that moved across east under Clan Hatton and lived in Strathnairn. The homeland of the MacPhail chief then was Inverani, which
Okay.
is right in the centre of Strathnairn, right next door to where the MacBains settled.
Yes.
Gilvries, uh, the shores weren't too far away. They were
Hmm.
just in the next, well, you could see their fortress, no doubt, from where they were. So the Shaws, McGilvery's, McBain's, all in that same valley of Strathnairn.
Right.
Further up the valley were the Macintosh, and then further away were the Davidsons. McPherson's were further down in the next valley.
Okay.
So yeah, so the whole of 20 mile, 30 mile radius, even 40 mile radius of Inverness was Clan Hatton land.
Right. I've been reading a little bit that maybe one of the earliest records is about 1400, maybe 1414, one of the
Yeah,
earliest mentions of them in that Strathnairn area.
yeah,
But they were probably there a
1414.
good 100 years first, like you say.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, we only go by what's written down in records.
Of course.
People move around all the time, and records aren't up to date always. So 1414 is the first written record of a MacPhail in that area, um, and then they've been vastly recorded ever since, all the way through, right up to the late 1800s, really, in that area. Um, Later on, obviously, MacPhails, like all clans people of that area, were moved out. The clearances came after Culloden
Hmm.
in late 1746. After that, and the government started to move out all the clans people that lived in them areas to replace it with sheep and farming.
Hmm.
And to be fair, the chiefs had a big say on that. They were party to that. Pressure will have been put on them, obviously, to raise more money and work harder, but the people were moved out from the land. And if you go back into Strathnairn now and you walk around Dunlickety, which is the church that most of the clan people would have attended, it's right in the centre of Strathnairn. In fact, this is the plaque behind me
Hmm.
that we had put up in 2000 to commemorate the chiefs and the family of MacPhail that lived in Strathnairn, and that's on the church wall, right next to the enclosure of the Shaws, and
Ah,
right next to the enclosure of the McGilverys. So we're all very closely knit and very close together. Um, yeah, and strangely enough, growing all around the plaque is the whortleberry, which is the Clan Hatton emblem
right.
and the Clan Phail emblem. So we got red whortleberry all around the plaque, which is quite amazing, really. It grew there naturally, nothing to do with me.
Really, and quite healthy looking it is.
It is, yeah. It seems to grow quite well in that area. One thing about, I mean, I visited Dunlickety with some friends this year in August, and their midges ate us alive. It was August is midge time, and they were ferocious, uh, and they really go for you.
Mm.
Living there must have been very, very difficult because the ground is very rocky. It's a
Ah,
lot of stone in the area. There isn't a lot of topsoil.
mm.
It rains quite a bit. The weather is quite harsh, and but they made a living there for thousands of years.
Right. Scrape that thin topsoil or whatever they could find and get some roots into it somehow, didn't they?
Yeah, they found it somehow, and they managed to live there. They traded with each other. They'll have gone into Inverness to sell things if they had things to sell, and they managed to survive for a long, long time there. They were very strong people. All the clans people of Strathnairn were hardy people.
Indeed. Now this church, Dunlickety Church, is a active congregation church today, is it? Or
It
not?
was until 2 years ago, and it's now been sold off by the church to become, I think, a kind of community centre for the local residents to have museum type things there for the community, for farming and for the local community. Nothing clan related.
Right,
It's obviously a very, very ancient clan church,
right,
but the only things that are going to remain there are the gravestones, which there's many of, the plaques that are on the walls, and the chiefly enclosures. We have one chief buried in there, which is our last but one chief, the father of the last chief. He's buried in there with his wife,
okay,
and they're actually in the shore enclosure. I don't know what happened at that point for them to be
right,
admitted into the shore enclosure, and I will say it is the shore enclosure, but there is one of the last chiefs of MacPhail buried in there with his wife. So obviously they were all close and good family and close to each other, all the clans at that time. So
right.
that
Now,
probably explains why it's in there.
right. Well, that's why my inquiry about the congregation, I was getting towards the angle of preservation, and was anyone near that is what I meant to say. Yes. So you answered that though. Hopefully it'll
Yeah,
preserve some.
yeah, it's been sold privately, and there's a company taking it over to make it a kind of community area centre about the current community
Right.
than the past history.
Now, speaking of Shaw, as goes MacPhail, didn't Duncan? Is it Duncan that married a Shaw at first, and then later married a Forbes?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay, yep.
absolutely. So,
Is he the one buried there in that Shaw enclosure, John?
top of my head, I couldn't tell you. I can
Okay.
soon find out. I've got a picture of it in my book,
Oh,
and
thank you.
I cannot remember every single thing in the world, I'm afraid.
I don't have the green book. It's in my
Yeah,
festival boxes, but I have the black book right here. I've,
yeah, I can tell you now, it is Donald MacPhail,
okay.
and on the gravestone it states Donald MacPhail, sometimes farmer, Ballinant and Gask, died August 1830, and his wife Anne, who
Now,
was a
John,
baby. His wife
John.
was a baby.
Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah.
Now that word gask, John, what is that word gask, please? I've seen that
Gask
many
is
times.
an old village, an old area within Strathnairn, on the edge of Strathnairn. Ballinult was another village, and Gask is another one.
Oh,
Um,
it's a place
some of
name.
these don't. Yeah, that's the name of the area.
Okay,
Some of them don't exist anymore.
I
When
see.
the clearances came, the people went, the villages vanished.
Including anyone's address or anything would never say that. It's just gone.
Gone. Everything was wiped out completely. The houses were taken down, flattened. Uh, when you go across Strathnairn now, apart from the modern houses that are there, obviously in the little villages that go through, there is no houses left. They've gone.
This is for pasture mostly, or
Clearances for sheep. I think there was political views as well on why they did the clearances in the Highlands. The Highlanders are nothing but trouble. All they want to do is defend their lands and look after themselves. And if army or soldiers are about, they're probably the ones that cause the trouble to stop them, to move them out, because they had their own laws and their own ways of doing things. They didn't need other people coming in to tell them. So I
right,
think the government at the time in Scotland decided, with the government of England as well, obviously, that time to move them all out, get rid of them all, stop the problem, which, to be fair, the British government has done around the world. But
right.
it started doing it in Scotland first. And many of the people that were there, because after Culloden, in the Highlands, it was deemed that no one was allowed to play the bagpipes. They were banned. They couldn't carry arms, so they couldn't defend themselves, so they weren't allowed to carry arms.
Ah,
And they weren't allowed to wear tartan. All of it was banned after Culloden. So if anyone was found having any of these possessions, they were arrested and could be shipped abroad. And this is why many of the people who live in Canada and America, because they'll have drifted down from Canada, a lot of them were sent there. They had what they called an indenture, and they would put Highlanders, if they'd been found guilty of any kind of thing they shouldn't have been doing, they'd be sent to Canada on big ships, and they'd go through indenture, which means they would have to work for so many years for nothing, on whatever plantations there were in America and Canada, and they would be sent there to. I'm not going to use the word slaves because I don't want to insult Black Africans who were
Right. Yeah.
treated vastly harsher, no
Right.
question.
Chattel slavery is another story, right?
Yeah, but they were sent across as would-be slaves. They had to work for so many years without pay and do as they're told and kept in appalling conditions. But they were allowed to buy themselves out after so many years. So it wasn't quite as bad as it was for many other people.
Hmm.
But it was part of the culture at that point. The government would take people and send them abroad to do the work that they wanted doing, and they were
Right.
done by force.
And we do we think about what happened to perhaps their children and mothers and wives? These are all men, of course. They're going.
Not necessarily. A lot of women were sent across.
Were they?
Yeah,
Okay.
they sent whole families across, but the men obviously, but the women could go, and some women were sent
Okay.
purposely. Children, if they had children, would probably have been put on the boat as well and shipped over.
Is that
Most
right?
of them went. Most of them went to Canada. And when you look at it now, when you think back, same with the Irish, America and Canada were built by the Scots and the Irish,
Truly.
and because they were shipped over there to do the work, and they built it. Many of the Scots and their descendants obviously took that very seriously and ended up running the companies, running the businesses, running the farms, and taking over in many respects. So they actually, when they got themselves out of indenture, they actually became extremely controlling of their environment and built most of it.
Mm. Indeed, a foundation of many of our government buildings and well, not the foundation of building, the architects of the buildings and the builders of them, in essence,
Yeah,
builders of the
absolutely.
Constitution, a lot of things.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of heritage now in Canada, Scotland, Canada, and America, and of course later on in Australia.
Right.
All the countries were built by these people,
Right.
and
And
then later immigrants came in from other countries in Europe and South America, and obviously they then took on that part as well. But started off by Scots Irish,
yeah.
most of the building.
And so these days, because of a lot of that, we're going to find Phails, MacPhails, Falls and Pauls and others in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the
Oh,
US,
absolutely,
pretty much, do you think?
absolutely, yeah. In all the English-speaking countries, the Scots with the Irish are all been sent out there. They're all living there, and their descendants are there now. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Now, the Phail Society, as far as that goes, are you in contact with some of the other people about the globe through
Oh,
that? Are they part of your
absolutely.
organization at all, or?
No, absolutely. We're worldwide.
Okay.
We have a when the society started back in the 80s. I founded this mainly because, like a lot of people of Scots and Irish descent, because I'm not going to separate the two too much,
Right.
because they are very connected in moving across
Okay.
and married, etc. So they are very connected. Um, when we started the society up, we host our paid membership like most societies. People would
Hmm.
join us, and we would send out a annual newsletter with as much history as possible in.
Yep.
But then it got to a point round about 2000, I would say, where that work became very difficult to keep going with a limited amount of people involved. So we decided that anyone by the name who has an interest in it is automatically a member if they wish to be. We
Hmm.
don't charge. Um,
Yeah.
Stopped doing the annual newsletters mainly because it was better to produce books and put them into books so anyone could have them.
Okay.
So we formed everything into a book and published it, which is you've got the original green one that came out, the first edition, and then we had, oops, I don't know if that will actually show.
Yes.
Then we had this one that is out and about now.
Okay.
I've just had some more printed, so there is a little stock of them still for me to sell to people that want them. We do it
Right.
all for cost. We don't make any profit. It's literally the cost of printing and the cost of postage is what they go out for. So
Okay.
there's no cash flying around anywhere.
Y-
And yes, we just make sure we've got a good committee that's from all around the world,
Mhm.
and we get in touch when we need to do. We don't have regular meetings because we only get in touch to have committee meetings when there's something to discuss that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
Uh, I've been the founder president since the 80s, and I still keep it going. We currently have a campaign on to try and get our chiefship back through the Lord Lion in Edinburgh.
Ah, okay.
We have written to him, we have done petitions, and we are in the process of trying to convince the Lion office to allow us to have a family convention,
Yes.
which is where all those of interest get together to discuss what they want to do and select a commander. We would love to have a clan commander because our last chief died in 1906 in Australia.
Ah,
He went out to be a farmer in Australia with his sister and gave up Scotland, went out there, and he died out there.
mm,
Um, and so we're wanting to revive that and get our chiefship back. And
okay.
so we're hoping to have a family convention one day and have a selected commander who will be selected for 5 years if it goes through with the Lord Lion. It's his decision only. No one else can make that decision.
Ah,
Um, and if we can select one, then that person's role will be to pull the families together, to pull the history together, and to ensure that the world is aware of them as a group, and then hopefully then the Lord Lion will allow us to have a future chief, which hopefully we will be able to select. And it has to be someone who is young enough and has either the ability to have children or will have children, so it can be a hereditary thing going forward.
yes.
Yeah. So there's nothing cut and dry about any of this. We have petitioned. We sent 100 signatures into the Lion office to ask for a family convention to start the process. We haven't got permission for that yet,
Hmm.
but we're hoping to keep persuading him, and hopefully one day we'll get there.
I'm familiar with some of that you talked about that's going on. A good friend of mine here in New England is a McGillivray with McGillivray International, and he's good friends with the McGillivray commander, and so I'm familiar with what's going on through them, as well as well, I met the Lord Lion here a few years ago in New Hampshire. He was over here, and we went out to a dinner party at a friend of mine's house out in the mountains. So I actually took him in the car for 40 minutes on the way there, and talked
Yeah,
his ear off and asked him maybe I could think of. Um,
yeah,
and also Ross McEwen was just here in New Hampshire with us this year. Do you know Ross? He's a heraldist. He's very into all these goings on, all the pomp and circumstance, and all the legalities as well that goes on behind the scenes of all this. It is, of course, a legal matter, and it is a court, correct?
absolutely, it is, and it'll be a long struggle. It's been a long struggle to date, to be fair, because I've been trying to get this through since about 1992, and in the last year,
Oh,
we've really pushed hard to try and get this Lord Lion before he retires to get this sorted out. They did it for the McGillivrays, as you mentioned, and the McGillivrays went through exactly the same process. They had lost their chief a long time ago,
yep.
um, and they managed to get a family convention and selected Ian McGillivray to be their commander. who is there now. I think he's in his second term of office now.
Mhm.
I know Ian very well. And very shortly, I would expect they'll be going down the path of hopefully selecting a chief and then moving on with that. We're behind them at the moment, but we're hoping to do exactly the same process.
Well, he's a very dynamic lion, I would say, if I can use the word lion, I could say that. Um, he seems to be, to me, others have said that to me. He doesn't sit down for a day, I guess. He's really goes after a situation
Yeah. And
very emphatically. There's no doubt.
he's had a very last busy 18 months or so, because obviously there was a coronation of King Charles, and he had a big part in that to play, because he's the King's envoy in Scotland. He's their representative, and he had a big part to do in the coronation in Edinburgh,
Yes,
and in Westminster. He was by the throne in Westminster when it was taking part, so he has a big say on all of that. And we're hoping very much that he will see our cause and allow us to go forward.
right. Now I know that right here in the U.S. is in the southern U.S. in North Carolina. A friend of mine through the Clan Chattan Association is she's with your organization, Clann Phail Society, I believe. Her name is Diana DeBrone.
Absolutely, yeah. She
Yep,
does fantastic work for us in America. Fantastic work.
she is.
They they have a very good setup at the moment, trying to bring together all the falls and MacPhauls and
Mhm.
any MacPhails that wish to be part of it together in America. Uh, they've got a fantastic database of DNA that people have sent in to have added, and they're doing a great job. They really are. Um, yeah, it's they've got a fantastic project going. It's very difficult and I need to get a little bit more into it, because I
Mhm.
want to separate. I've got my own personal reasons why I want to get more into it, and that is that I do a lot with DNA. I try to find out as much as I can. I study DNA. I've had mine done as much as possible. There's nothing else that can be done at this time. So
Yep.
DNA does interest me a lot. And most clan DNA, and I don't want to complicate things too much, but tends to be Scandinavian descent, and it's type R. So it's haplogroup R
Type
generally
R.
for most clans people. We've
Scandinavian
got
R.
all,
That's intriguing.
yeah, it's Scandinavian that's come into Scotland through many generations of people that have been coming in, settling or invading, um, but not all. An interesting part about my particular family, the MacPhauls, um, and I've written a book on them as well. I wrote a, if you
Oh,
can see that, if you can see that one, it's not easy to read, but I think it's
looks
reflecting.
like a map. A map. Yes.
It is on the front. It's what you used to be, what they class as Doggerland,
Yes.
is the British Isles with land that joined it to Europe,
Sure.
and it's a very important part of history for my family, because at the end of the Ice Age, 10,000 years ago, people could still walk across from Europe into the British Isles. There was land, so they could walk across, and they lived in it, and they settled on it, and there was forests there, and it was farming land. And then the Ice Age came and
Mm.
thawed, and the water levels rose quite a lot, and
Yes.
all this land was then flooded, and it's now at the bottom of the sea, the North Sea. And the North Sea is pretty deep. It's one of the deepest seas. And down there is still artifacts of people that lived 10,000 years ago, buried down there. And occasionally bits pop up and people find parts occasionally.
Right. The
Um,
trawlers, right?
well, people go searching for it specifically
Oh, do they?
and
Okay.
find, yeah. Um, but yeah, 10,000 years ago, up to about 8,000 years ago, people could still walk across from Europe into Britain. Now, my going by my DNA, my direct ancestor, male ancestor, going all the way back 8,000 years, is most likely to have walked across and been one of them original hunter-gatherers that came to Britain and settled after walking from Europe. And for some reason, they didn't have the intelligence to invent the boat, and they stayed there for the next 10,000 years.
Right.
And so the Mackfall do have this DNA that goes right the way back to the very first settlers in the British Isles. And of course, that brings in the complication. And the population of Britain at the moment, they estimated between 1 to 2% of people that live in the British Isles have DNA from the early hunter-gatherers. Everyone else has been incomers since. So anyone that's complains in Britain about immigration, etc., in the past, needs to be wary that probably they're all immigrants too, because everyone in Britain is an immigrant at some point. Just so happens that some of them came well before the others, and Britain is a country of immigration, as America is, apart from obviously the earlier settlers, the Native Americans.
Yes, of course, of course. Now, so R1A and R1B are which of those did you say of the Nordic branch?
They both
A and B?
derive very strong Scandinavian roots. Yes.
I'm surprised you're saying that, John, because I myself am I am I1. What is the DNA that you think came across from Doggerland?
It's I.
It is I. Okay, I1.
It's I. Yeah, I 1 and 2. So I'm an
I1 or
I2.
2.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
an
yeah.
I2. And
All right, interesting.
yeah, it depends which code you go through, because different DNA systems use different ones, but it's
Okay.
yeah. But
All right.
yeah, I mean, I've got my family DNA going all the way back, and they were literally amongst the first settlers in Scotland, Ireland, and Northern England. But of course, 8,000 years ago, when there was hardly anybody walking around here, the ice was still, prevalent. It was just only just going. People came
Right.
to be hunter gatherers to follow the animals around to hunt, and later the farmers came and settled, and then the culture changed to farming, and then later other cultures came. But you've got to realise this is 6,000 years before the Romans came to Britain.
Mm.
Six
Oh, sure.
thousand years. This is a long, long time, and not a lot developed. The hunter gatherers were there for quite a long time, and then farming came, and they went through the Iron Age, Bronze Age, well, Stone Age, Iron Age, Bronze Age, all the way through Britain until eventually the Romans settled, and then obviously modern history after the year zero, the modern age started. But
Right. So,
people were here a long time before that, and of course, for the complication for my family is that they weren't the same hereditary lines as the Scottish chiefs and a lot of the families, because they weren't an R haplogroup, they were an I, which means they were there and they integrated with everyone that settled afterwards, married into them, settled with them. But of course, your male DNA carries on father to son forever, with
yes.
slight changes on in the meantime all the way through, which is we can tell what period they're in by them changes. And so yeah, my family seems to be, my original inhabitants here seem to have been here working the land. Scottish people eventually moved in from wherever and wherever came from, be it Scandinavia, be it from wherever,
Yes.
and they just mixed in with them and became part of them, which is the history of Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely. This is very interesting. Now we only have a couple of minutes left, John. I'd like to say that, well, thank you for coming, of course, on the Touchknot channel. But so if you're a MacPhail or MacPhail or a Paul or a Paulson, any of that, if you know your DNA, you've already had it tested or have not, they should contact. Is it Diana's mother, right? Linda
Linda,
MacPhail's
yes.
Kilby.
Yes.
Linda.
Yeah, absolutely. Find the
Okay.
Mackfall Facebook page,
Okay.
and they will help you out and collect everything together. And it's surprising how many Americans have close relations very close by and they don't even know it.
Okay. What is it now? MacPaul? What's the Facebook page?
Theirs is MacPhail's.
MacPhail's. Okay.
I believe.
Maybe you can send me what what's proper to tell people, I could I put an image of that Facebook
Yeah.
page on here,
Yeah,
something like that. Perhaps that'll help them get a hold of them. Or if there's
absolutely.
emails or anything connected to this,
Yeah,
anything you can help
I'm
get
sure
people.
Diana will be happy to help and support you on that. In fact, she'll be a very
Okay.
good one to have on your channel and have a chat to.
Yep. I think Cindy McIntosh already had her on, mostly about Grandfather Mountain, perhaps,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
yes, good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've only a minute or three left here, John. Thanks so much for coming on. I think we've covered a
Yeah.
lot of, a lot of ground that we needed to.
No, thank you very much for having me, and it's an honour to be on your channel. And for people that are interested in Scottish history, it's a good thing to have. So thank you.
Right, and we're trying to get the other 11, right? Every month there's another 11. In this month you're the spotlight. So,
Yeah.
and from Farquharsons to McThomases to McPhersons and you name it, they're all learning about
Absolutely.
MacPhail this month, and that's how it works. So, thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
All
Goodbye.
righty,
Goodbye.
that's not everyone. Thanks for joining us. Bye bye.
Bye.